Good day, everyone. Greg Satilla here from CRPG Legends, and today we are going to be taking a look at the absolute classic from 1998, the first RPG that was released by BioWare, and that is, of course, Baldur's Gate. This video is going to feature the enhanced edition of the game, which is the primary version of the game that is sold today. When Baldur's Gate was released, computer role-playing games were not in a great position. Outside of a few major series like Ultima and Wizardry, there weren't many memorable PC RPGs, although a few of them were starting to pop up like Fallout and Diablo, and the Elder Scrolls series was starting to grow. The Dungeons & Dragons license had failed to release any real memorable games as of yet, and the PC itself was still churning out first-person shooters and making the push towards graphics acceleration. But the market for PC role-playing games changed when Baldur's Gate hit the shelves. The game managed to shoehorn the rules of 2nd edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons into a top-down, isometric, third-person game with a large, beautiful world to explore, interesting characters to interact with, and a well-written and expansive adventure to keep you moving forward. It was everything that RPG and D&D fans were looking for at the time. The game didn't look too much different from a game like Diablo, but there was far more to interacting in the world of Baldur's Gate than relentlessly clicking on enemies and gathering loot. The game required players to really think about the battles they were going into, to plan different ways to take down tough enemies, and to work together with a cast of very different characters to strategize and survive tough encounters. The game, at its most basic, wasn't the easiest to get into, but it didn't take long to understand the basic rules if you were a beginner. But the game is also far deeper when you really get into it, as there is so much depth to the type of characters that you can create within its rule set that it keeps veterans returning for more and more playthroughs. Potential party members litter the open world and give players plenty of opportunities to explore different setups and even alignments, as it allowed you to not only put together a party of altruistic do-gooders, but it also allowed you to play the game with evil intentions, as you could put together a party of filthy degenerates as well. This is just the tip of the iceberg though. Let's explore what makes Baldur's Gate one of the best in computer role-playing. Like any great RPG, you start your adventure with character creation. It's interesting that in the modern era of character creation, we spend a lot of time on the aesthetics of our character. We can shape their noses and their earlobes and adjust their eyebrows in an attempt to make the most lifelike character that we can. In Baldur's Gate, you could change some of the color palettes, and you could choose your own little picture for your character portrait, or if you wanted to, you could import your own picture into the game. But the part that has you sitting in the character creator for hours is not the visual aesthetics of your character, it is the race, class, and the stat rolling that will have you spending far more time than you would have ever expected within a character creator. You are first asked to choose your sex, which outside of aesthetics and pronouns really doesn't have much of an effect on the game. This was 1998, so your choice is binary. The race selection has a far bigger impact on the game. Your race can have an effect on all sorts of aspects of the game. It can affect your base stats, which will affect how good you are at certain classes. So a lot of players will marry their class to their race to maximize the good effects and minimize the bad. So you might want to make your fighter a half-orc in order to get that bonus to strength and constitution. Different races will affect the classes you are able to be as well, such as humans cannot multi-class. Certain races will be able to see in the dark with infravision. Others will be resistant to certain schools of magic. I try to pay attention to the stat boosts that the characters give. For example, dwarves and half-orcs make really good fighters. Next, you pick your class, and for players new to the D&D rule set or new to RPGs, the straight-up classes of fighter or thief might be the easiest to play as you get your footing, but there are plenty of options for main classes and various kits for each class to try out. Fighters, druids, clerics, rangers, mages, sorcerers, thieves, all just some of the classes available to play in the game, and no matter which class you pick, you are sure to find lots of companions that fit in well with your class. Non-human races are given the option to multi-class, where your character starts with 2 or even 3 classes, and the XP you earn in the game is divided equally between the classes that you are multi-class into. Your character will progress much slower, but they will also earn the skills of multiple classes, so this is not a bad option if you want to play with a smaller party. The other option that humans have is the ability to dual class. Dual class is quite a bit different than multi-class in the fact that you choose a class and level it up to a point you choose, and then you choose another class to level. When you choose the second class to dual class into, you forget everything you learned from your original class and begin a new leveling experience, a fresh class. But then when you get one level past where you decided to dual class, at this point your other class will unlock again with all of the abilities you had learned to that point. Here's an example if I didn't quite explain it good enough. I leveled Imowin as a thief until level 5, putting her points into find traps and lockpicking. Then I dual classed her into a mage. She lost all her abilities as a thief, and I leveled her as a regular mage until she hit level 6. At that point, she still continues leveling as a mage, but all of her previous thief skills unlock, so she is now a mage who can use all of her old thief abilities while she levels as a mage for the rest of the game. This adds a lot of depth to creating characters. Now there's also an XP cap to worry about in these games, so you won't be able to level too high before you dual class or you will run out of XP. So it's important to know the breakpoints on when your class levels and how to optimize the dual class if you go that route. The real fun starts when you begin to roll your stats. The game will roll 3 6-sided dice for each of your 6 main stats. The classic strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. You are given a total amount for your combined roll as well. You can take the stat numbers as they are assigned, or you can change the individual stat values as long as their sum doesn't exceed the value of your total roll. For many purists, you take the stats as they are rolled, or you take your roll and redisperse your stats. However, you are given the ability to keep re-rolling your stats over and over and over and storing the highest number you have seen in order to return to it if you decide to keep rolling to try and get a better number. You have to be careful though to ensure you don't click too fast and go right past that high number you were looking for. On my first playthrough, I sat looking for a 90 plus score and ended up clicking past one before finally saving a low 90s roll that I played through the game with. Remember that the difference of a couple of numbers can make a big difference in the game. On subsequent playthroughs, I got an auto-rolling program and let it roll while I went and made breakfast and received a 95 to make my second character. I definitely recommend rolling something in the mid to late 80s or over for your first character, but wouldn't sweat it too much as long as you're able to put a high amount of points in your class's primary category unless you want to handicap yourself for some reason. Chances are you're going to make all kinds of decisions on your first playthrough that aren't optimal, and I wouldn't worry one bit. You can sweat the little things on your subsequent playthroughs where you have an idea where high value items are and have a better idea on how you want to play the game and what party members you want to have join you. The first time through is all about exploration and learning the ropes. I can't imagine playing through this game once and not wanting to play through again, either cleaning up the mistakes you might have made the first time through, or the knowledge of a powerful magical item might make you create an entirely new character just to go take advantage of a singular powerful item. Choosing your weapon proficiencies is also a big part of replaying the game through, as you really have no idea which weapons are more abundant than others or which ones have a really powerful magical variant, so it's a bit of a crapshoot to begin. Drizzt Do'Urden carries two of the best weapons in the game, but they are both scimitars, and it's unlikely for a first-time player to put their fighter proficiency points in scimitar over longsword or two-handed swords, but at the same time they are probably unlikely to be able to kill Drizzt. That being said, the initial character setup is absolutely important in setting up how you either want to roleplay your character or if you want to straight up min-max your character, because there is not a lot of room within the game to fix your mistakes once it's started. That being said, on your first playthrough, I wouldn't be too worried about whether or not you chose the right weapon proficiency. All weapons have some powerful options within the game, and you will do okay with any of them. You will have to choose your character alignment as well. There are lots of potential party members that you can join up with in the world, but be prepared that players who don't gel with your alignment are going to leave your party. Evil characters won't tolerate good characters and vice versa, so make sure you know which side a character aligns with before you take them too far along in your party. This is a really big part of Dungeons & Dragons, and it's also a really cool part of this game, that there is an abundance of good and evil party members that inhabit this world is awesome. Also, remember some of the character classes are bound to certain alignments, so if you want to make an evil character, then you won't be able to roll a ranger or a paladin, for example. Once again, I am going to mention that the game does have an experience cap. The original game had an experience cap of 89,000 XP, but the first expansion, Tales of the Sword Coast, which is also included with the Enhanced Edition, raised the XP cap to 161,000, which allowed for players to gain some additional levels, or more importantly, it made multi-classing and dual classing more robust. The vast majority of players are probably only going to be around level 7 when the credits roll, so honestly, it's important to have a basic understanding of how the game works. The original manual for this game was about 90 pages, with a good chunk of it explaining how the game mechanics work. You will want to know the basics before you get going, or the game is going to be really confusing. You will want to understand THAC0, 2-hit armor class 0, and that better armor has lower numbers. You will want to know that experience is divided up between players in your party, so that when you get 2,000 experience, it's going to make a much bigger impact on a party of 3 than a party of 6. Which also means that you don't want to waste your XP. If you don't think a player is going to be a good fit for your party, then kick them sooner rather than later. You don't want to have a party member leeching away experience if they are not going to stick around. The highest XP a character can have when they join your party in the Enhanced Edition is 32k XP, so switching party members in the later game is going to be very detrimental. This is pure D&D as well, so it's important to understand how combat works and that the majority of combat is basically just an abundance of dice rolls done in the background while you watch your characters swing away on screen and wondering who is going to get the better rolls. I will caution everyone now to save often. The default quick save button is Q, and it is your friend. It only takes one bad roll to suddenly die, and if your main character dies at any given time, it's game over. Time to reload. I once even died from a random lightning bolt when I was just walking around the map during a rainstorm. This is a dangerous world. The difference between absolutely destroying a mage in a fight or having your entire party wipe before your eyes will often depend on one dice roll. That saving roll against the web is probably going to be the turning point of any fight that the spell is cast in. Your stats, of course, are what you try to use to increase the odds of the dice working in your favor, but you're going to die a lot in this game, especially in the early game before you have much of a toolkit. You're going to try out different strategies to try and win fights or increase your odds of winning the fights, and really, it is this aspect of the game that is what makes it, in my eyes, so much fun to play. The combat in this game can also be like a puzzle, but you have to see it first to figure it out in most cases. There is no way to have a party set up to ideally handle every situation that will be thrown at you in this game without knowing what is coming. The first time you run into a basilisk and suddenly you and your party members are transformed into stone before your eyes in a matter of seconds will leave you blinking in disbelief. They just disappear so fast. How are you to know that you would need protection from petrification on your players at that moment? Do you even have that spell in your spellbook? Maybe some scrolls? You need to be prepared. Chances are you would be able to create a setup that allows you to stumble through most of the fights without changing your spell slots or loadout, such as the fact with the basilisks, if your party members do get petrified, you can always go back to town and do some shopping for a scroll to change them back from stone form. However, if your main character gets targeted with petrify, it is an instant game over. Chances are in a situation like this, the first time you encounter it, you will probably just die and be forced to reload. So might as well just set up your spellbook for the encounter or try a new strategy. Try some new positioning. I find one of the most fun parts of the game is retrying a battle you just lost and trying to do it as efficiently as you can. This is another part of what makes a subsequent playthrough so much more likely. It's fun to come back to all these fights that took you by surprise or that you barely beat and to be completely prepared for them and just smack them around. At least until the dice don't go your way and you remember even the best laid plans may not go your way in the world of D&D. You are always at the mercy of the dice, and every D&D player has watched the D20 land with the dreaded number 1 pointing straight up. Also, learn how your spells work and remember that friendly fire is a real thing in this game. Nothing like killing half your party with your own poorly placed fireball or lightning bolt. Or maybe use it to your advantage and build a character up with super high fire resistance to round up enemies and then lead them into a well-placed fireball. It's up to you, but there is plenty of room to experiment in this game. Other important game mechanics to know about is ensuring your thief is always looking for traps and able to pick locks. So if you want to make your primary character a thief specializing in hide in shadows, make sure you have someone who can find traps and pick locks because those functions are very important in the game. There are lots of booby traps hidden throughout the world and they can do some serious damage and easily kill multiple party members in one go. A lot of dungeons you will want to make sure your thief is at the front of the group, slowly moving forward, constantly searching for traps. Plus, there's a chance in the early levels that your thief may fail to detect a trap. It can be a bit difficult at first to get used to moving slowly as a thief and scouting out rooms before the rest of your party comes in the door. If there are enemies in the room, try to coax them out if possible. It sucks when your whole party runs into a room to fight some enemies and sets off 5 or 6 traps and just wipes your party in an instant. This is the point of the video I want to stress to players that it is in your best interest to turn off the AI of all your party members, including your own character. They will make stupid decisions because they aren't in on your little plans. You open a door with your thief and you have party AI on, and there are a bunch of monsters inside. All of your fighters are going to run through that door and start fighting if you have that AI on. They will probably be the ones setting off all the traps and wiping your party. So just turn off that AI and make liberal use of the pause combat button and give out your orders. Chances are you're just going to have to give them instructions to do basic attacks, but you want those attacks to happen when and where you want them. Let enemies funnel through doorways to you, not the opposite way around. Mages and spellcasters don't use mana or energy or anything to power their spells. They get a set amount of spell slots to use and they gain more of these as they level. If you want to use the same spell twice, then you need to make sure you have it slotted in twice. Mages start extremely weak in Baldur's Gate, generally having next to no hit points and only one spell slot at the start. You can only replenish your spell slots by resting, so make sure you plan when to use your spells in combat early on and give your mage character a ranged weapon like a sling to keep them away from the action. You are starting with no more than 6 hit points, so it can be tough. Also, A lot of spells are area of effect, and like I mentioned earlier, friendly fire is a thing, so you might accidentally put your own party to sleep or encase them all in a web, so make sure you understand what spells you are slinging around. Sleep is a very, very powerful spell for a mage to get as their first spell slot. It can bail you out of a lot of bad situations. In fact, that is how I view a mage in Baldur's Gate. They can eventually obliterate a party with a well-placed spell, but they are generally problem solvers in my eyes. They are the ones that influence the environment in a way that allows your fighters to beat down on enemies to take advantage of the AoE crowd control. It's another reason why I stress really understanding the concepts of the game before you get too far, because initially you can survive a decent portion of the game without really knowing what you are doing, but when you reach a situation where the game requires you to understand what is going on around you, then it will become very frustrating very fast if you don't understand it. Take it from me, I have owned the Baldur's Gate games for over 20 years, and I have installed and tried to give them a go on multiple times over those years and never got too far. I might get a chapter or two in, but ultimately I would get frustrated and shut it off. However, this latest time when I went to try and play it again, I started asking more questions about the game to friends who enjoyed playing it, and I started reading more about it on the internet, along with having played a couple years of tabletop D&D since I had last attempted to play. But it made a huge difference when I sat down to play the game and finally understood the core concepts of the game and what was going down as I played it. So trust me, it's worth it to read the manual or to read up on the game before you invest your time into it. You will most likely save yourself some time and frustration. It will probably save you from either restarting the game or just quitting playing it. Baldur's Gate for me went from one of my most frustrating gaming experiences to one of the most addicting and replayable video games I have ever played. Now let's talk about the story. This section will have spoilers for the game, so if you want to play it for the first time without any spoilers, then feel free to skip over this section of the video. Now, the story for a lot of players is the reason they play RPGs in the first place. I myself love a good story, and I love a good game. If a game has a great story, I can overlook bad gameplay. If a game has amazing gameplay, I can overlook bad story. Well, Baldur's Gate has the luxury of having both, a fun, addictive game that is married with a well-written adventure that has enough mystery and excitement as you work your way through the plot. The other piece that I really love about the story in this game is that the story is designed as an early adventure for a D&D character. A lot of games will follow your character from a low-level noob all the way to an all-powerful godlike character through the course of a single game. This is not the case in Baldur's Gate. As mentioned previously, the average player is going to finish this game around level 7. That isn't very powerful at all in the grand scheme of D&D, yet the story is still powerful and meaningful. The game begins with your character known as Gorian's ward and is told that he must prepare to travel immediately and meet up with Gorian to leave the only home you have ever really known, which is Candle Keep. At the start of the game, you are as green as you can get, and this is shown in the way you make your journal entries early on. Your life consists of running small errands, killing rats, bitching about the gold that the guards give you to do their tasks. It really does a nice job of setting your character as someone who is not your traditional hero. Basically, a young person who has spent their whole life doing chores at an exclusive library. You quickly learn that Gorian is your adopted father and that for some reason, assassins start popping up and wanting you dead. Gorian attempts to whisk you away to safety, but when the two of you try and make a break from Candle Keep, you are ambushed in the wild by a group of enemies, and Gorian commands you to flee, and he dies trying to protect you from harm in what is one hell of a battle. You escape, meeting your friend Imowen, and remembering Gorian's command for you to meet his friends Khalid and Jahira at the Friendly Arms Inn. That is the beginning of this adventure. You are left on your own in the open world with just your good friend Imoen. You are unable to return to your home of Candlekeep because, for one, it's not safe, and number two, they will not allow anyone entrance unless they bring a valuable book as payment for the entrance fee. And you are now missing this because you no longer have Gorion. Your initial quest directs you to the Friendly Arm Inn, and along the way you're going to run into a couple of potential party members. That is something you will have to get used to in Baldur's Gate. There are lots of characters in this game that are able to join your party. The first ones you run into are probably going to be Zar and Montaron, who are evil characters. If they join your party and then you still add Khalid and Jaheira, they will be at odds with one another from the get-go. I am pretty sure they set the game up with those as your first 4 potential party members in the game outside of Imoen, just so you could see that they would clash in your party and let you know that alignment is important. Once again, I want to stress that if a player is in your party, they will get an equal share of all the experience you get while they are in the party. So if you decide to add a character to your party and then switch them out for another after 4 levels, then all that experience that they earned in your party is pretty much wasted. This can make or break your playthrough if you replace too many party members. Your overall power level may end up being too low. Also, some party members don't become available until later in the story, so this can be tough to avoid on your initial playthrough. Maybe you don't like a character after a while, or you find someone later that slots in perfectly for your party. It isn't really the end of the world to swap them out if you do this only with maybe 1 or 2 party members in the mid to late game. But it will have an effect on the overall power level of your party, so don't have a revolving door of party members. A great first time good character party for you to try would be Imoen, Jaheira, Khalid, Minsk, and Dynahir. Khalid and Jaheira come as a package team, and so does Minsk and Dynahir. So once these teams are in your party, you won't be able to swap out one without losing the other unless one of them dies. Ultimately, the game doesn't force you to go to the Friendly Arm Inn at all. What really gets the story rolling is finding out that there is an iron shortage at the mine in Nashkel, and that the iron that is being mined is coming out brittle and unable to be used to make quality weapons or armor without falling apart. You also hear whisperings of tension between Baldur's Gate and the neighboring Alm, and that bandits are attacking caravan shipments. Both the good group of Khalid and Jaheira and the evil group of Montaron and Zar will push you towards Nashkel to investigate the mines. It is at the mines that you find out that there is a plot underway that is poisoning all the ore that comes out of the Nashkel mine to make it porous and useless. This is a plot that keeps going deeper and deeper as you make your way from the mines to a local bandit encampment and then to a second hidden mine within the Cloakwood Forest. As you go along, you learn of the involvement of the Iron Throne, a merchant's guild from Baldur's Gate. Their plan was to destabilize the iron market by contaminating the Nashkel ore, increasing tensions between Baldur's Gate and Alm, take over the production of iron via the hidden mine in Cloakwood. Then they could sell the iron to both sides at an increased price and then help to settle the tensions between the two states and become filthy rich in the process. Your party, after taking down the operation at the Cloakwood mine, heads to Baldur's Gate to search for evidence on the Iron Throne and their involvement in the plot. At the same time, assassins are still consistently being sent out to try and kill you, and the bounty being offered continues to rise. Your investigation leads you to realize that the Iron Throne is also using doppelgangers to destabilize other trade guilds, and that proof of their involvement is currently being kept with an Iron Throne leader who is taking part in an important meeting at Candlekeep. So you are given a rare book for entrance and are sent back to Candlekeep where the whole adventure started in order to get this info. It is here at Candlekeep you learn of a prophecy of Baldur'S. The children of the god of murder will sow chaos until only one remains, and they will ascend to become the new god of murder. You learn that you are one of these Baldur'S, and Gorion raised you despite this fact. It is at this point where you are arrested for the murder of the leaders of the Iron Throne, whether you actually kill them or not. You will be arrested for the crime, but one of the keepers believes you to be innocent and transports you to the catacombs below the Candlekeep to make a grand escape. He also reveals that Crpg, who is in Candlekeep, was the foster child of one of the now slain members of the Iron Throne. Crpg backwards is Sarevok, the one who is trying to assassinate you for some reason, and the person who killed Gorion. You find out that Sarevok is also a Baldur'S, and he believes he can ascend to be the new god of murder if he causes enough death and destruction. So while the Iron Throne wanted to merely make money on the iron shortage, Sarevok wanted the incident to spill over into full-blown war. As a result, he pins everything on you and your party, the murder of the Iron Throne members as well as the plot to overthrow the Nashkel mines and the recent illness of Duke Elton. Sarevok says this was all done under the direction from as well. He uses these announcements to come off as a hero and to gain the public trust so he can become the new Grand Duke of Baldur's Gate and enact his plan of war. You and your party members are able to find evidence of this and present it at Sarevok's coronation, where he was to become Grand Duke of Baldur's Gate. With his plans exposed, we chase him into the bowels of the city where we destroy him, saving the Sword Coast from a horrible war. And when Sarevok dies, a statue representing him is also destroyed. It is, however, one of many statues, each representing another Baldur'S and potentially another adventure. It's a solid adventure and one that feels just right for your level and experience throughout the game. You start as basically a no one and earn your renown and name for yourself on a small local level before eventually saving a small nation as you approach the double-digit levels. It's an adventure that is so familiar to so many pen and paper D&D players in terms of scale, and it is nice to explore the lower half of the leveling spectrum and allow us to continue in the next game. It's funny how in a lot of other series your character becomes real powerful and then in the next game they no longer have all their skills and the game has to come up with a reason why you aren't all powerful the next time around, or might have forgotten your abilities, at least for a bit, like temporary amnesia or something. This is a much different change of pace, and I like how it works out for the series where there is continuous power curve for your character. The story is multifaceted as well. There are all these different layers of the story that are going on at the same time that really tie together nicely. The looming threat of war with is constantly growing in the background during your adventures without at first you realizing how mixed up in the whole thing you have already become. But the villagers you talk to along the way will make mention of the threat of and the iron issues early on in the game, so you know that both of these things are causing enough pressure on the community that everyone is taking notice. They are scared. They are afraid to go out on the roads in fear of bandits. Their economy is under threat, and is being made to look like they are responsible. Then you have your own story. Why is someone trying to kill you? Why did Gorion sacrifice himself for you? Why are you so important? On top of that, you kind of get railroaded into the issues at the Nashkel mine, and as you start exploring this thread, you unknowingly increase the urgency at which Sarevok needs to have you killed because your character is unwittingly ruining his overall plan. You had no way of knowing that the person trying to have you killed was the same person engineering the poisoning of the Nashkel mine and the same person responsible for the rising tensions between Baldur's Gate and as he tries to fuel a war. It is pure evil, and Sarevok is a pretty great villain. mainly because they don't beat around the bush with making him look or feel evil. The game starts right out of the gate with him bursting through the door in his imposing armor and murdering someone. Then he straight up murders Gorion. So right off the bat, we know that this dude is bad and he means business. But at that point, we don't know who the heck he is or what the heck he wants, and the mystery slowly unfolds how the whole operation is put together until his identity is revealed as your sibling. Plus, he cares nothing about who he kills along the way. His foster father, your foster father, as many people as he can in a pointless war between Baldur's Gate and Alm. Just all around top tier villainy. It really is a fun mystery and a great adventure, and that is without even touching the colorful cast of companions, the fairly large amount of quirky side quests, and the plethora of magic items that are also a big part of what makes this game so great. Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition has 29 different companions available to choose as your party members. It's kind of crazy. It feels like you can't enter a new zone without having someone new approach you to join your party. It is a case of too much choice for how the game works, as with an XP cap on the companions that can join your party, you need to make a decision on who is going to be in your party for the rest of the game or risk losing out on experience. You can also use this to power level yourself a little early on if you feel comfortable before picking up your companions. They will get boosted to around your level and you will have a strong party right from the start. As long as you don't greatly exceed 32,000 experience before picking up party members, then this shouldn't be a problem. As for the characters themselves, they fall all across the D&D alignment spectrum, so whether you decide to play as a good or evil character, there are plenty of options on who to take with you and all different kinds of potential for unique parties. Some companions come as couples, and if you try to remove one, the other will refuse to stay in your party and will leave as well. The only way to separate the couples is to have one killed or turned to stone by a basilisk, or to cheese the game a little and kick out one of the party members and switch maps before the dialogue can kick in and just never go back to that map. There is potential that companions will not like one another and choose to leave your party, or if they don't agree with your alignment, they may leave. Needless to say, there is all kind of unique combinations to try out. I will also add that on higher difficulty levels, your party members can die permanently in the game, so keep that in mind as well. Due to the fact that there are so many companions and the game really encourages you not to keep switching party members during your playthrough, I really was only familiar with a few of the companions. Imoen, Corin, Dynahir, Minsk, Khalid, and Jaheira. I also have an evil playthrough going where I'm using Viconia, Shartiel, and Edwin, but that game is very early and I haven't spent much time with those characters yet. However, the main characters of the game seem to be Imoen, Dynahir, Minsk, Khalid, and Jaheira. This seems to be the canon party that is carried forward into Baldur's Gate 2. They are a decent group of characters. Imoen is your childhood friend and is a thief character. I dual classed her into a thief mage on my second playthrough and I found her to be pretty decent and carried her weight. I have a friend who can't stand her and loves to ditch her for Corin with his 20 dex as soon as he can. Jaheira and Khalid are old friends of Gorion and they are a husband and wife combo. Jaheira fills the healing slots, plus she is tough being a fighter druid, so she is a great addition to the party, while Khalid is a fighter who gets frightened and runs away whenever his health gets low. He does a good enough job if you keep him healed up though. It is also how the game conveys personality when there is limited banter between the characters. Finally, Minsk and Dynahir are another couple. Minsk will ask you to help him find Dynahir as a quest, and he is a little bit of a dumber character, and he carries with him in his quick item slot a hamster named Boo, which he calls his space hamster. He is probably the most memorable character in the game outside of Saravok. He is loyal to Dynahir, whom you have to rescue. Unfortunately, Dynahir herself seems to lack a lot of personality compared to the other characters in the main party. Most of these companions that join your party will have a side quest for you to complete with them. I definitely have only touched the surface with the companions, but I will say that you will grow to appreciate their abilities as they level and grow, but their personalities are pretty much only skin deep in the game. The companions don't have these well-developed backstories at this point, but they are a fun and colorful bunch to play with, and you will probably be able to put together a party you really enjoy. In later games, we see BioWare cut down the amount of available companions in their games, but really increase the depth of their characters. In later games, you will build bonds and relationships with your party members. It's definitely not at the level at this point in video games, but you see the starting point of what will become, and the variety of choice is really nice to have. The world in the game is expansive and beautifully painted and divided into large separate areas or zones. Each zone is blacked out when you enter it, and you reveal these blacked out areas as you explore. These maps look great and they are a real treat to explore, but just like any dungeon in the game, they can be dangerous and filled with traps. Also, they are full of little hidden secrets. The Enhanced Edition lets you use the tab button to highlight any objects that can be looted, but even with this, it can still be difficult to find all of the hidden loot. The open world is also where you will come across most of the side quests in the game, and these range wildly in variety, and some are really funny. In one case, you must return a talking chicken, a mage who accidentally polymorphed himself to his master, and help him to be turned human again. You have to track down a murderer who's raising an army of the dead. There are people who will pick your pockets and try to sucker you out of your money. It really has a lot of variety and a lot to offer you, and the best part about it is that it is fun to do these quests and build these characters and play the game. Every time I play, I seem to stumble onto some quest I never have done before in some zone I thought I had fully explored, and I will be just as surprised that the game still has more to offer in terms of quests and fun. The game doesn't exactly announce who is handing out a large amount of the quests either, so be prepared to talk to a lot of NPCs multiple times, because it can be easy to miss talking to the right NPC to trigger a quest. Luckily, the game usually has multiple ways to steer you towards a lot of the quests. You will want to make sure you explore as much of the maps as possible, because there's a lot of fun to be had in this world by going off the beaten path. And there is a lot of beaten path. If you only went to the places that the main story directed you, you would miss a staggering amount of content in this game. The Enhanced Edition also contains the content from the first expansion of the game, which contains the excellent dungeon crawl Durlag's Tower. You have to check it out before you finish the main quest, but it is also quite challenging, so you don't want to enter it at too low of a level. So I recommend that you are about level 5 or 6 before attempting it. It is one heck of a dungeon crawl as you make your way through 4 subterranean levels. It is absolutely loaded with premium loot and all sorts of traps and puzzles. It took me a good day to play through it, and I was glued to my screen the whole time. Finally, I just want to mention the loot. What is a Dungeons & Dragons RPG without the magic items and potions and scrolls and spells? Well, this game is loaded with them. But I want to say right off the bat, try and get your hands on the gem bag, the potion case, and the scroll case. It will save you a ton of grief when looting items because you have very limited inventory space. These items will minimize a huge amount of frustration when playing this game. Also, this game contains a lot of cursed items that will give you large negative effects, so ensure you identify items before using them or beware the consequences. Cursed items are just part of what makes magic items in this game so much fun. You want to identify whatever you get as soon as possible, especially on that first playthrough when you have no idea where certain items are located. I was super impressed the first time I ran into legendary Forgotten Realms super character Driss Duerden. I was even more impressed when I found out you could get your hands on his armor and his prized scimitars Twinkle and Icing Death. All you had to do was kill him, a 16th level Drow Ranger. Or Apparently, you could cheese his death, engaging the gnolls in that fight but not getting close enough to see Drist. His fight animations won't kick in, and you sit and wait until the gnolls kill him. Granted, this could take a while as they have to crit to be able to hit him, but once he dies, his armor and twin +3 swords are yours. Of course, this is next level cheesing of the game, but I still do it a lot to get my hands on those swords. Especially if you want to get your hands on some powerful weapons to try a solo playthrough, you can grab these weapons at level 1 and use them to fuel your rampage through the game. But also there is enough awesome gear sprinkled throughout the game that by the end of the game your party will be garbed from head to toe with magical items. Make sure you go and explore as much as you can. There is gear and adventure around every corner. There are caves and ruins to explore. There are people to help, and there is gold and glory to acquire. Now, don't get me wrong, this game isn't without its downsides, but it can be tough at times to figure out if one should level the criticism at BioWare or level the criticism at the second edition of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons rule set. The classes aren't super balanced and the early levels can be frustrating. You will die a lot. The randomness of the dice roll and the ease at which you can become overwhelmed in this game at some encampments will leave you sneaking closer and closer to only grab the attention of the outside members of the group and pull them away. I'm not 100% sure if they wanted players to do this or not, but it seems necessary for a lot of the fights that you encounter. The fact that a party member dying and needing to be resuscitated at a temple and having to carry all of their gear and inventory divvied among your characters basically means a death in the party is a reload, especially if you're in a dungeon, which means a big portion of the game is doing the quick save and reload dance. Luckily, the reloads are extremely quick and the fights are extremely quick. You can go through 3 or 4 attempts on a lot of these fights before some spell animations may even start and finish casting in a Final Fantasy game. The inventory system is frustrating and limited. 16 slots per character isn't a lot of room, which is why I mentioned getting the scroll, gem, and potion holders. The quest system and journal is tough to navigate. If you want to remember quest givers and important locations, you have to make sure you make notations on your map with the in-game tools or your own entries into your journal so you can remember where to turn certain quests in. Navigating hallways can be a little bit annoying at times as your character can get confused in their pathfinding, but overall it isn't that bad. As for general bugs in the game, at this point in the life of Enhanced Edition, the game has had hundreds of bugs fixed over its life, so the game really didn't have many bugs that I noticed. So the majority of my complaints about Baldur's Gate are minor. In the end, Baldur's Gate was not a game I was expecting to become so absorbed and interested in. It's kind of funny. I was playing it at first as out of a sense of obligation that as someone who loves RPGs as much as I do, I should ensure I play it through once. I started my little Baldur's Gate journal series as a way to ensure I made my way through the games and I didn't give up. But along the way I got seriously hooked. I finished the game and immediately fired it up again. I could do better. I could make a better character and carry that one through to Baldur's Gate 2. So I immediately replayed the game again all the way through. And as I finished, I came to the conclusion that I wanted to play it again and experiment with new classes and make a smaller party and gain more power faster. So I did it again. And then I started thinking about an evil character with an evil party. So I started that as well. I have Baldur's Gate fever right now and I am loving it. I hear the second game is much better than the first, but I am not there yet. I'm not ready to move on to the second game yet. I am still experimenting with the first game, but I know when the time comes I will have a small army of characters to choose from to play through it with. Thanks so much everyone for tuning in, whether you are a Baldur's Gate fan that wanted to hear the opinion of another fan or someone interested in the game. I hope this video has sparked your interest to fire it up for a playthrough. It is definitely an adventure worth playing through. If you have played before, let me know your experiences with the game, what you love about it, what your favorite moments are, what your favorite class to play is. I want to hear it all. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Please check out the other content, my Twitch stream, and my podcasts with my good friend Apox, where we discuss World of Warcraft and other classic RPGs. Also, if you want to help support me, check out my Patreon page, or help me figure out what kind of content you would love to see on my Patreon page. Thanks so much, everyone. Until next time.